Good day to you. My name is Maria Kądzielska and you are watching Poland Daily Culture from the Royal Castle in Warsaw. Here with us is Professor Richard Butterwick Pawlikowski, and author of the book The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Before we start talking about the Constitution of the 3rd of May, could you tell us in few words how did it happen that you, being British, you are also so fascinated and you're an expert in the Polish-Lithuanian history?
Well, the 18th century has been my favorite period of history since I was a schoolboy. And so the choice of the 18th century was natural to me. But one of my grandfathers was from Poland, and we sometimes visited Poland when I was a child. That wasn't particularly interesting to start with, but later it did become interesting. And after a visit in 1987, I decided I would learn the language and specialize in the history.
Well, the first part of learning the language needed to be a challenge. But I'm very happy that you managed to do it, and now you also pass the knowledge to others. So when we go back in history, so the Constitution was passed on the 3rd of May with some difficulties, but the king swore the oath. What happened later?
The opponents tried to make a protest the following day, and they were allowed to do so in general terms. And it became clear that the Constitution, which had been passed in such an unorthodox fashion, needed to be regularized, made legal. And so at the very next session of Parliament, or the same, on the 5th of May 1791, there was a discussion about what could be done in this situation. And one of the future leaders of the counter-revolution, Bishop Józef Kosakowski of Livonia, was actually the head of the deputation that was responsible for the drafting and the finalizing of laws. And he said that this is irregular, that this has been passed by the voice of the public without proper procedures, so what can be done? It was suggested to him that he had himself sworn an oath in the church 2 days previously, and that if everyone in the same swore and agreed unanimously to accept the Constitution, then the constitutional deputation, as it was called, would be able to sign this into law. And this was done. So even some of those who had objected 2 days ago now were the first to declare that they supported the Constitution. And one of them proposed that everyone kiss the hand of the king as a sign of respect and unity, and this was done. So if there are doubts about the legality of the revolution of the 3rd of May, the 5th of May made it legal.
And they needed to implement the new laws to the system, which of course needed to be the challenge. How did they start to do it?
The Constitution itself is short. It's only 3,700 words in Polish. And it left a great deal to be filled out later. It also took in some previous laws, such as the laws on royal town, in order to make that part of the Constitution. And so afterwards, we get a whole succession of laws about the Sejm and the Sejm Court, about extraordinary Sejms, about the central forms of government, the Council of Ministers, which was called the Guard of the Laws, literally, the Straż Praw, about the central government commissions, about there were continued reforms to local government, the situation between the Polish Crown and the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, which the Constitution had treated in a very ambiguous form, was now made clear, so that the union was strengthened and that the status of Lithuania was secured. And then various different types of courts also received laws reforming them. So we get a whole succession of laws which fill out the Constitution over the next few months. And those institutions begin to work, and on the whole, they worked very well. The year or so before the Russians invaded in 1792 was a period in which the new system took root, and a new kind of politics based on harmony and trust, although there were still some pretty fierce debates. That new system began to bed down.
We could say that if not for the foreign powers, that maybe the Constitution could really reform the state. Is it true?
Absolutely. The constitution was widely accepted by the Polish-Lithuanian nobility. The number of malcontents was very small. This was partly because of the celebrations that were staged regularly right across the Commonwealth in large cities and small towns on various occasions, such as the royal name days or when the court that's met, the supreme tribunals, and of course, above all, on the first anniversary of the Constitution. This was when the feast of St. Stanislaw, the King's name day, was moved from the 8th of May to the 3rd of May on one and only occasion. So there was a lot to celebrate. After decades of humiliation and defeats, there was finally a cause to be proud of what it was to be Polish. So that feeling of success was part of it. And there was also the explanation of the Constitution, the campaign to convince people that this was in the country's interest. That worked too. And in February 1792, local assemblies of the nobility, Sejmiki, were held right across the Commonwealth, and not a single Sejmik criticized the Constitution. And over 90% of them at least made a vote of thanks for it. In fact, in the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, 27 out of 33 Sejmiks expressed their support for the Constitution in the highest possible way by swearing an oath to defend it. So I think we can reasonably say that the community of citizens approved the Constitution of the 3rd of May, which further legitimized it. Those who were prepared to take action against the Constitution were in a tiny minority, but unfortunately, members of that tiny minority went to St. Petersburg to supplicate the help of the Empress Catherine II of Russia.
Today we can only dream about such political unity, and it was manifested just after the passing the Constitution of 3rd May. Even though it didn't play the political role which they hoped it could play, it's still a sign, and right now we can remember it as a moment of unity and political change, which maybe can influence on also modern times. Thank you very much for watching Poland Daily Culture.